Mafate 5 here. Not the Mafate Speed 5, just the Mafate 5. Yes, this is a pretty polarizing update from Hoka. I hear you, I understand you, and I'm here to talk you off the ledge today. Well, if version 4 had every single minute detail that you wanted in the trail shoe, especially in terms of high cushion, max cushion, ultra trail shoe, maybe perhaps in that case, I won't be able to talk you off the figurative ledge, but hear me out. There are some updates here that make this a different shoe for sure, but maybe a worthy shoe for maybe different types of running. Yes, there are significant updates and changes here. First off, they are going to an 8 mil drop, 46-38. I measured 46 at the heel in my Mafate 5 here, and based on their 8 mil spec drop, that's where I come up with that stack. That is a significant bump from version 4. I measured 37 at the heel in the most recent light version I've been running in. 4 mil drop, that makes it 37-33 full stack on that one. So that gives you an 8 to 10 millimeter increase in stack height plus additional drop. Yes, foams are more technologically advanced these days, but you cannot go up 8 to 10 mil in stack without incurring at least a noticeable weight gain. So in this US 10 Mafate 5 that I have on my feet right now, I am looking at 11.6 ounces on foot. That is roughly an 1.5 ounce increase over the Speed 4 Light version, purple one I've been recently testing and running in. Again, significantly lower stack in that shoe, 37 at the heel versus I measure 46 here. I do measure around the mid 10 ounce range for my regular Mafate 4 version, which is in a US 9.5, half size down. You're looking at roughly a 1 ounce increase in the standard models between the 4 and the 5. If you take another recently released Hoka model into account here, shares the same name. Of course, I'm talking about the Mafate X. That shoe clocks in at a hefty 12.4 ounces. It is 2 mil higher at the heel, which I did measure. So that puts it at a little less than an ounce heavier there. So at least in terms of weight, the shoe kind of sits directly in between the regular Mafate Speed 4 version and the beefier Mafate X, but significantly higher stack, more in line with the X than version 4. So even though you're kind of in the middle in weight, you are getting relatively more foam midsole cushion underfoot with this model. Another element of the Mafate 5, which was probably discussed, was that they added a plate to this shoe, but I did get a look at the tech sheet. They have a diagram there, and they call it a rocker integrity technology. I'm not sure if it's quite called out as a plate. I'm trying to get details on the material itself, but it's not really a propulsion plate. Of course, Hoka is known for their meta rocker technology, but perhaps as foams get softer, stack heights go up, it may become tricky to maintain, I guess, the shape of that rocker throughout the foot strike. So this plate looks like it's not in the middle of the foot, connects somewhere around the midfoot, and then kind of flares out to kind of like these wings. So it's really hard to decipher any propulsive effect from them, but perhaps it's just keep that rocker rolling and also not hinder flexibility, which is something that I definitely notice. The shoe doesn't really feel stiff at all underfoot, and that's definitely a departure from the Mafate X. That one feels very stiff underfoot, really like barely getting a sense of that toe rocker up front, but really very limited on flexibility anywhere else in that shoe, especially around the middle of the foot. This shoe honestly feels quite standard. If you watch my Mafate Speed 4 Light videos, you'll know that maybe that's not a shoe that I particularly prefer for technical terrain. It's just overly soft underfoot, a bit loosey-goosey. I mean, I see a lot of comments that people like that shoe, so I did call out in some of my video reviews, if you're looking for an absolute cushy, soft shoe at a decent competitive weight for long distance running, trails, ultras, that's really a good option, but it just is not particularly fast. Maybe it's the lack of something like a rocker integrity plate that you get here. It just feels maybe too flexible, like you're losing a lot in both the softness and the flex of version 4. 5 here, I feel that softness underfoot, but not that overly flexy feel. It doesn't feel like I'm really losing energy to the softness and flex of the shoe. Of course, I'm losing some speed or efficiency or whatever because it's just objectively heavier. But if I were to kind of discount the weight and just the feel of it underfoot, it does feel quicker, snappier even than the Mafate Speed 4, even though this shoe is still 11.6 ounces. I do have to say, if this is not the fastest 11.6 ounce shoe I have ever run in, I don't know what is. I do mention sometimes that 11 ounces sort of the tipping point for me in a shoe feeling heavy. Sometimes I will say, okay, it's 11 ounces or close or a little over, but it does feel a little bit quicker. This shoe feels significantly quicker than 11.6 ounces should really feel. Hoka did switch the foam setup here. Another dual layer setup similar to the 4. I was kind of curious how they would do it. 4 has softer full length layer closer to the foot, and then a firmer layer next to the ground above the outsole. They swapped that here, so you've got the softer layer closer to the ground and the firmer layer closer to the foot, but they switched it from not being entirely full length, at least for the firmer layer. So that black layer is the softer supercritical EVA, and that is fully situated under the heel and closer to the ground under the forefoot. So you have really a nice soft landing platform under the heel there. If you're mashing down hills, or perhaps you're a heavier runner and you're concerned about the switch in the midsole foam layers, definitely I wouldn't worry about that, because you're having a big chunk, a much bigger chunk, being that the stack is also bigger under the heel, much softer chunk there versus version 4. Yeah, good mountain for some uphill training. Maybe a few weeks from now, we'll see what I'm up to then. Backside of the mountain here. Could see, not sure which lift that is down there. Now, the fact that they didn't go full length with the firmer layer, that would be the blue layer there, that probably helps save some weight. Again, really big stack height here, closer to Mafate X in the 4. But it's like, how did they do that? I guess part of it is they switched to the lighter supercritical EVA, full chunk of that under the heel instead of half with a softer and a firmer layer. A little more lush around the backside of the mountain here. Climbed a little bit initially to get up and away from the lodge there. Then once it kind of sweeps around the backside, bit of a gradual downhill, working your way around the mountain. Now on the backside, have to work my way back up. And yeah, this is where an 11.6 ounce shoe factors in. That weight does come into play, becomes more noticeable, surely on the uphill. This is the Pine Creek lift here. I was spacing on the name of the lift before. Check out my latest Q&A video. I raced the Vective Pro 3 out at Beaverhead, and that shoe's 11 ounces. In that Q&A, I answer a bunch of questions and talk about how maybe the weight possibly affected me. It's a little bit higher weight in a super shoe, or any shoe for that matter, certainly over 100K. There's a doggy here. I just passed a hiker. Hi, do you belong to that lady? What's going on, buddy? Maybe not. Yeah, it was that lady's dog. I had to shout across a big long curve there. She said he's fine. I guess he's going on a solo jaunt around the mountain just like me. So I know pretty much right out of the gate that is not really a racing option for me personally, but I have gotten a few scattered comments, speaking to shoes performance from, say, heavier runners. I always thought that the weight of the shoe is less of a factor, if you're a bigger, bulkier, heavier runner. For example, those Speedland GS platforms, it feels like a whole lot for me. But I generally see a lot of those bigger guys, hybrid athletes or whatever, they seem to have no problem with them. So I would definitely, if you're of that body type, let's say, you want to look at a shoe that's potentially leaning on the heavier side just due to the compression aspect. And let's say a 46 millimeter midsole may affect you the same way, say, 38 or 40 affects me. I mean, these are real considerations for sure. Not every runner is the same body type, same weight, height, all that. By the way, I'm out for another run in this FUGA Air 8 vest. I've got the bladder in the back there. Talked about how I like that it has 2 real zipper pockets. Definitely need one up front, always handy. And one in the lower back and the rear, which is a good and secure location. I've got my phone back there right now, which I don't need on the course of the run, but I want to make sure it doesn't flop out of another pocket somewhere. I've been drinking pretty steadily on this run, and as the fluid decreases in the bladder, the vest gets a little loose, and it's just pretty simple to dial a couple clicks and keep the vest nice and secure and stable there. So do not touch that dial. Coming up straight ahead, I'm going to talk about the ride. I'm going to talk about foot security and stability in more technical terrain, although you've seen me hit a few patches over the course of this run already, and it is a bit twisty and turny, I will say. And at 46 millimeter, that's really nothing to sneeze at. despite maybe the general lack of rocks throughout most of this route here today, you know, managing 46 millimeter when you're kind of twisting around sharp turns, that's no small thing. I know there's certain high stack shoes that would certainly have some trouble with that. Working my way around the front side of the mountain here. There are a few ways down to complete the around the mountain, but I think I prefer to stay up high. Started my descent here. This is certainly an area where that big, thick, super critical EVA heel does come in handy. Also probably an area where the Vective Pro 3 struggles. It's just, I think, a little bit too bouncy throughout, a little bit too unwieldy with this Mafate 5 here. Even though it's perhaps probably not on the racing level of the Pro 3, it has that layer of firmer foam under the midfoot. So as I'm going down this kind of moderate descent here, I could mash that real soft heel slab there, but then as I transition into my forefoot, I'm not really having that squishy softness at the front, which can kind of make you feel a little squirrely, make you lose a little bit of control. It transitions to that kind of firmer dual density setup at the front of the shoe under the ball of the foot, and that makes it more, I would say, controllable on the downhills, the, you know, type that are just straight, moderate, pounding downhills. Of course, I'm not talking about technical downhills here. We're still at 46, 38 here, so still gonna be hard to manage that height, that slab underfoot, when it's not just more of a smooth pounding descent. So once again, stay tuned. I will catch you on my next Mafate 5 test run right now. A little bit of 1K slight downhill warm up there. Let's take a quick look at the upper. We've got a warp knit anti-fray mesh here. That's this section right here. I believe, I don't know if it was the regular version, or, you know, maybe some other uppers and different models, different brands. You can get a lot of fraying when you have this type of mesh. This one says some type of anti-fray featuring there, so that should be good, prevent it from pilling up and stuff. There's also a TPU cage, which is these kind of overlays here, and I can definitely say that I do feel that. So you've got these overlays stretching this way, even coming around on the lateral side here up on the pinky side, and then again on the medial side coming up around the arch. So all of this right here, that is part of that cage. Pop the shoe off for a second here. It's on the outside of the shoe, layered on top of that anti-fray mesh, and I have to say, I think this is one of the best Hoka uppers of any of, at least the high stack trail shoes. I don't know about the Zinal and all those kind of, you know, speed oriented shoes. I haven't actually run in a Zinal in a while, and I haven't run in a Torrent in a while, so I don't know how those compare. But in terms of the max stack shoes, this TPU cage works really well. I have great midfoot hold in it. The shape of the shoe, I would say, is typical Mafate, and I think that's different from the Speedgo in that it's I would say slimmer around the midfoot. I feel like I get a good wrap right around here where this band in this sock is corresponding to how these cages of TPU overlay, this cage of TPU overlays, wraps around the foot right around here. And then with the Mafates, I always feel like it kind of rounds out around the ball of the foot here. It just kind of flares just ever so slightly before tapering in kind of a rounded and not pointy fashion. Something with the Speed Goat, it just seems like it doesn't really round out as much, and then it just kind of more sharply comes to a point there. And just the last few Speed Goats, for a while now, I just get squeezed right around here, and it makes my foot numb, or I have real problems getting the tension right. This is a great Mafate fit, similar in last, foot shape, all that. I just think this cage really does work well. You got this vamp here, and this is a neoprene type material. It is probably neoprene, a bit stretchy. I know some brands have tried to kind of copy this, maybe in style only though, because this one does have some stretch effect to it, while some of these other brands, they just make this kind of cutout here, but it doesn't necessarily work as well. Another quick feature, gaiter attachment, something I talked about in my last Q&A. Great. One in the back if you have, like I have the Mount to Coast one, if you have some other ones with just one hook in the back, hook it right on there. You have a hanger thing here. I'm going to cut this off later. I never hang my shoes like this, and this one is really kind of large and floppy. I don't think that's necessary. Anyway, interior of the shoe. Nothing goofy or fancy in here. Just a big old ring of padding along the interior. Nice deep cup, I find, and this padding does come and wrap up around my heel bone. I have no problems with heel hold in this shoe. Flexibility is really good. Again, stack height is up there. I've got 46-38 measured, and it flexes very well. Again, that carbon fiber plate I was talking about on the run earlier up at Bogus, I don't know where it comes together, probably around here, and then you could see those edge flares. That's part of that plate right there, the rocker integrity technology. So you have those flares up in the forefoot, and they come like almost like a wishbone, kind of maybe around where this Vibram is, or somewhere around here. So in the rear of the shoe, there's really no stiffness at all, especially even around this section, the middle of the foot. Like 46-38, and you have pretty good flexibility. If you were concerned with that, maybe thinking about the Mafate 4, how there's no plate, lower stack, very soft, and just how flexy that shoe is, how soft and flexy and high stack it is. Maybe you were concerned going up even higher in this Mafate 5 here, if it would maintain that flex. You might have heard about the carbon plate, yada yada. It's really up front, so it doesn't affect the flexibility at all. I think they've done a good job because, like I said earlier on the run, the Mafate 4, it feels super soft, and I feel like going through the ground strike, you lose some kind of impulse or propulsion through the softness of the shoe. And running in this shoe, even though it's heavier at 11.6 ounces compared to those different, I think 10.6 in my regular 4 and 10.0 in the light, this shoe feels actually quicker off the ground even though it's heavier, and I think it's probably due to this plate. Like, you have the flexibility when you land, you're not losing adaptability. Again, tricky still to manage because you are so high. I'm not trying to say that this is the most handleable shoe in technical terrain, of course, but once you get through that ground strike up here, this plate does seem to kind of, I don't know, keep the rocker intact, you want to say? I'm not trying to market for Hoka here, but it does have a different feel instead of just sinking and losing kind of momentum into the softness of the shoe like with version 4. It does tend to just keep it rolling. So I think this rocker integrity technology plate, whatever, if that's whatever they want to call it, I think it works well. One thing I would say, yeah, check this out. Feels so good over here. Like, this feels great for me. And again, you saw how I flexed it. There's no stiffness, like something with the, in comparison to the Mafate X, which I'll look at in detail later after the run. The shoe is so stiff that the heel just wants to pull out of the shoe because there's really no flex, not much anywhere around that shoe throughout the length of the sole there. You have more flex in the middle and even the rear of the shoe, so my heel doesn't want to pull out of the cup there. So this is good. A little questionable about this. I don't understand why they can't get this tongue a little higher. Watch me lace up right here. I don't have an issue. I have had no problem with the tongue sliding around at all, or the knot or the upper lace row kind of migrating and giving me pressure on the top of my foot. It's just kind of on the edge though. I don't need to lace lock in the shoe. If you did need to lace lock, you'd have another row of laces, which would be, I don't know how this is going to hit on your particular foot anatomy, but it could be above this lace thing. I think, you see, this is already dipping below here, there, which maybe that's by design to make it speedier or more comfortable. I just think it could be whatever they do, some kind of way. It could just be a little higher, so at least people won't complain about it. I mean, you could see it's kind of on the edge there. So, all right, let's go. So let's head up my little hill here, and I'll talk a little bit about downhill running, faster running on a descent. I do have some clips from a previous run where it's a lot of switchbacks, twisty, turny, steeper, less straight up and down. So I'm gonna throw those clips in here as I go. The vamp at the front of the toe box there really does a good job of letting your foot kind of spread out, splay even a little bit when you're climbing. I like to have a nice tight midfoot tension in my lacing, which works extremely well with the TPU cage here. But on the uphills, that can tend to be squeezy sometimes. You're putting more pressure, and especially the ball of your foot, you kind of want to have it more relaxed at the front of the toe box, the lacing that is. So that vamp for me, it does give kind of a sweet spot in terms of keeping pretty good tension. You know, when I want to have it tight around the middle of the foot, but allowing a bit of spread, a little bit of relaxation when you're climbing, as I am now. Gonna hit the top of this climb after that switchback there, and then I'm gonna turn right back around and see how fast I could pick it up on the way back. The change to an 8mm drop from 4 in this version, I think, is very noticeable on a descent like this. It's definitely feeling like quite a crash pad under the heel, and it also, I notice it being higher. The highness of the additional 4 is just more apparent heading down here as I'm mashing the heel more so. In my version 4 light videos, I do talk about that shoe being very soft and perhaps a little tricky to control in technical terrain. I get the same sense here, but probably more oriented around the heel. Again, I think that rocker plate up front, I get a pretty good sense of stability and at least more control in the front of the shoe. But I am mashing the heel and it feels quite soft, so you do have to be careful. I am finding myself dialing it back a little bit as I go down here. I don't want to hit the wrong uneven surface on that soft 46mm heel there. Might be a bad time, but comfortable though. If you've got a clear path, no obstructions, ooh, you could bomb downhill in this shoe. Well, before I get into this downhill here, just want to talk a little bit more about the upper. I really think it's, just want to reiterate, it's one of Hoka's best for me. I think the foothold is really excellent. It makes me think about the Tecton X3 and why I have not raced in that shoe at this point. Coming up on a year of having it, and what are my reservations with that shoe? And it all comes down to the upper. I love the ride of that shoe, the parallel plates, the efficiency. I feel like that shoe's a little narrower than this one. Stack is obviously lower, 5mm drop. The midsole, outsole unit is more controllable in that one. Certainly a top racing shoe for pros and all that. I love all those aspects, but the upper always gives me pause. Doesn't feel quite as secure. I have yet to try that lace locking modification. Gonna do that soon, but if they could somehow approximate this TPU cage setup in that shoe, that would be fantastic. I mean, don't lose the gator. Somehow keep the gator, but work in, I don't know, at least something of this foothold, an approximation of what you get from this TPU cage in the Mafate 5. That would just be great. Of course, it's gonna add a little weight, but that shoe is light. I think it's 9.7 ounces in my US 10, 9.5 in my 9.5. So would I give up a third of an ounce, maybe even a half an ounce to get something close to this level of foothold? Yeah, I definitely would. I mean, that would put me at, say, 10.2 ounces. I mean, that is very good for, I believe it's 40-35. Carbon plates, full PIBA, secure upper, ankle gator. Maybe strip the gator. I would trade that for this foothold, let's put it that way. So I think this shoe handles pretty well for 46, 38 stack there. I'm able to push it through some technical terrain. I wouldn't want to run maybe that fast all the time, and maybe that kind of terrain, if it were steeper, would of course be more trickier. But, you know, with caution, I mean, think about it. You want the CUSH, okay? So you're gonna have to handle it when it gets rocky like that. Final analysis on my Mafate 5 testing period, at least. I think it's hard to thread that super max, super plush needle on the trails, especially if you want to have the type of outsole that they have here, maintain that 5mm Vibram, super luggy traction that will handle anything. So that's a factor. You think about the weight being 11.6 ounces. I talk about 11 being my tipping point, personally speaking. Again, also heavier runners. That's gonna trend higher. So this shoe, even the Mafate X, depending on how much force you're putting into the shoe, how much you're flexing a stiff shoe, especially the Mafate X. This one, if the Mafate X is too much for you in terms of weight, especially stiffness, maybe you just really can't flex that shoe, really difficult. I tend to find that the case for me. This could be the option, and you're saving nearly an ounce in weight. So yeah, the weight is up there. You know, a shoe like this, you're trying to thread that needle where you want max cushion, you want that soft feel, but you don't want it to bottom out. You want it to feel kind of endless, and you don't want to feel like you're only limited to easy terrain, paths, gravel, whatever. And you know, in terms of max, super max, ultra max stack, whatever you want to call it, you know, you may not like this model update from Hoka as it relates to version 4. But if you're looking at it from the aspect of, you know, that super plush trainer that can reasonably handle everything, this is probably the closest any shoe is coming to threading that needle. Many of those shoes just have to give up something, like the foam is not as soft, not as energetic. With this model here, Hoka doesn't seem to be giving up too much. The softness of it, also with that plate element up front, it tends to keep it moving. It feels quicker, at least the sensation of being quicker on the run than maybe the Mafate 4. Not sure if it actually is due to the weight, but that just endless softness combined with really secure foothold. It's not the upper that's going to hold back, say, security and stability. It's just the natural nature of being at 46-38. If you can learn to work with that kind of stack height, oh, you're going to enjoy the cushion, protection, traction, efficiency of this shoe. Thank you once again for tuning in. Again, stay tuned for more with the Mafate 5. Like, subscribe, all those good things. Check out the website. Check out the description below. I've got lots of related Hoka videos, so if you're interested in the light, Tecton X3, other comparable super shoes that I talked about here, check the description. Lots of cool videos in there. You could make it a binge session if you want. Anyway, also stay tuned. I'm gonna check out those other models once I get back. All right, I've got the full Hoka Mafate lineup here. Let's take a quick look at all of them here. Let's start from the beginning. Hoka Mafate Speed 4, as it says in there. This one, check out the flex on that one. Super flexy. This is the only shoe I have in a US 9.5. The rest I have in a US 10. 10 has been working good for me in Hoka. Haven't put a crazy amount of miles in this one. I tested it initially, ran in it a little bit with thin socks, a little too tight in the toe box at a 9.5, but you can really check out the flex there. Mafate Speed 4 light version, same in terms of flex, a little less flexy actually because I've run in this shoe a bit more, probably put more miles in this one. Gotta just break this in, but easy flex throughout the entirety of the shoe. Moving on to the updated non-speed Mafate 5. Again, you can note how flexible this shoe is, even with the added stack here, 46-38. Just look, even in the rear of the shoe, the tail flexes quite a lot. Middle of the shoe, easy flex. I detect maybe a little extra stiffness. Again, you have that rocker integrity plate. I detect that kind of back to front, front to back. Just seems to have a little more elasticity, but again, it's not connected. It seems to wishbone over here, so you have a lot of contouring for sure. You could really squeeze it there, so this is really going to contour around a lot of stuff. Again, this foam very soft here. This models, you have a dual layer, softer, firmer here. I think this black one is definitely to the touch. This slab extremely soft, and that carries up under the foot here into that rocker integrity plate. The blue one, a touch firmer, surely. So I'm not sure. I thought they had said that they were going to switch up the densities of the foam top to bottom, but that doesn't seem to be the case, although you could see how they carried the softer foam way to the heel here, and I felt that in the descents, just like smashing down on that heel there. You could really see, I mean, you could see how soft that is. All right, X, Mafate X, huge. Let's try to flex it. Yeah, that's about it. Very difficult, very stiff shoe. You would think this is 2 mil higher even measured than I measured in the Mafate 5, but you would think this would be a massively cushioned shoe, but it rides relatively firm. It really relies on, it has that slab of PEBA in there, and the plate, it relies on bounce. So you hit the ground and it kind of relies on bounce more than softness. So this is not necessarily a super soft, squishy shoe. I think you're more so going to get that feel with the Mafate 5 actually. For me personally, how am I looking at these shoes? This one, I'm really not going to run in that much anymore, especially now that I have the light. I looked at the heel thing, which was a potential problematic area for me in my first video there. It ended up not being an issue at all. So again, this one's, for me at least, superseded this one. 10.6 ounces and even 10 in this one. So I'm dropping over a half an ounce in weight with no issues with the upper. So like this shoe here, it's fun to run in. It's very soft. Again, I feel like the whole shoe is a little soft for technical terrain. This one, I feel like you're stepping up into another level of cushioning with this one. It's very soft, and I do like this TPU cage upper. I think it holds the foot really well. You're going up in stack, you're going up in a softer feel, but it feels quicker. That rocker integrity plate seems to actually keep it moving, and even though it's 11.6 ounces, again, you know, you got to think about that relative. When I say my tipping point, I feel like 11 ounces is heavy. You're looking at 46 under the heel. So it's not like an 11-ounce shoe for, say, a 38 mil stack. It's a massively higher stack for an additional, say, 6 ounces from what I'm calling heavy for me. So you are getting a lot here. It's just different than I think what people are going to expect. Again, 10.6, you're going up in my size here. 10.0, I'm talking about weight here, you're going up from these Speed 4 versions in the Mafate 5, but it's a different kind of shoe. So, you know, you can be upset that they're changing the style of the shoe, but it really is something different. The Mafate X, I would say, for me, it's very stiff. This is too much shoe. I probably can't see myself putting too many miles in the shoe, especially now that this one is around. I like, you know, if I'm going to run in a mid 40 ounce shoe, I kind of want it to feel soft. And this one feels soft. And I have no issues with the heel slippage. I don't feel like, this one I feel like in order to get it going, I have to run faster to get the bounce out of it. But to run faster, you got to pick up a lot more weight. It's just like a harder shoe to run. This one cruises easily, and I think this is just a pick for me. My big super trail cruiser. I mean, this works for me, and it's probably going to work for a lot of runners.